I'm resident of Colorwood for YouTube. That's my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to review the movie Ravenous, suggested by Butch Rosenbalm. Butch, I gotta tell you, I watched this twice, and I really, really love the scenery. This was filmed in Prague and Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
And
really,
down in Mexico.
yeah, they did it. It looks like California enough. I mean, why not?
I saw this movie. I'm jumping ahead just a bit because I'm throwing something in. I think it was opening night in the theater, um, and was just blown away. The funny part of it is, this is the first movie I remember sitting in the theater going, "Man, I can't wait to buy this on DVD." And as you can see, I still have it, and I have been waiting for months to spring this on you, Joel. Patrick and I had seen it before, and but I couldn't wait. I mean, I think it's possibly the most Halloween appropriate Western that I can come up with, and I'm so looking forward to hear what you all have to say about it tonight.
Patrick, go ahead.
I always pick weird stuff to like in a movie. It'd been a long time since I'd seen this film, and I watched it with Butch, and I really enjoyed it. And then it was right before it went off of Netflix, which I think was pretty recently, because I went to cable to watch it again, and it wasn't there. I went to streaming to watch it again, it wasn't there. Anyway, and I was just as impressed. I think I was more impressed the second time I saw it. It's nice to see it outside of 1999 because the athletic uniqueness of the storytelling in the movie reminds me of just what a weird year that it was. 99, right? It was 99. Yeah, what a weird year that was. What a great year that was. And again, it's yet another chapter, and Patrick talks about why modern movies are awful. Just the musical score alone,
God, I love it.
is outstanding, but just how bold the weird casting choices are, these amazing faces, that there's really the only two actors who are kind of traditionally good looking in the movie. They make look like extra weird anyway. You got Lieutenant Hawk now with his weird blonde hair, and like if you ever wondered, and that's a deep cut. Uh, and then Guy Pearce, finally out of a dress, but and not in Los Angeles, but he's looking strange also, and everybody else just looks. If you look at those pictures from the Civil War, people looked awful. They looked really weird. I mean, I don't know if it's just nutrition or what, but you think everything's going to be like a time travel movie and it's modern actors. Like, no, the bone structure seemed different. And then you got Robert Carlyle with that sort of bizarre kind of bat villain like combination of features. So talk about the Joker. That guy. I mean, it is like the Brian Boland Joker. And Jeffrey Jones. He's such a tough guy to talk about because of his youth outreach program that he was running, and it's like talking about Cosby. It's almost like you're not allowed to talk about the fact that Bill Cosby was a very funny, influential, and insightful comedian despite being pure evil. And then you got Jeffrey Jones, who I think it's like this is a movie full of things that steal the movie. It's like a bunch of thieves trying to top each other. I think Jeffrey Jones is really the hidden gem in this film, is theoretical authority figure who's I don't want to resort to puns, and so this is an accidental one, and I'm not saying it'd be funny, and it probably won't be, but who's literally out to lunch.
Yeah.
and yet his management style is kind of my management style, like early in the movie, when I'm directing. So it's this very Henry Blake like approach to what he does, and I love that character. And it reminds me of how much we lost when Jeffrey Jones rightfully had to relinquish his career.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great portrait of capitalism, America, all the stuff. Just this relentless consumption. Uh, and a portrayal of a lot of hierarchical male culture, which is about consuming one another to gain ascendancy, and it's the Wendigo that does it, and that's fine to have that horror element. It's very Deadlands, and that's cool. But we shouldn't let that rob us from also talking about the fact that it's just a killer metaphor, and even though it lands with all the subtlety of an anvil in your crotch, that doesn't matter. Sometimes the truth does.
It's a cannibal movie without
Part.
being completely in your face about it to a degree.
No, it's in your mouth.
It's not what, like, this isn't Cannibal Holocaust, if you've ever seen that, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. No. Cannibal Holocaust is hard to swallow.
Right. This is not. And I really enjoy the scenery.
This is the sort of cannibal movie that really stands up to a process of elimination from the other cannibal films.
You know who would have been good in this movie? David Selby.
Sure. A lot of actual cannibals passed on the project.
The Guy Pearce is really an interesting actor. He, throughout his career, it's like he always took risks with the films he selected, and this is a really, really gutsy role for him to play. And I like his character a lot. He talks about what he did, and he wrestles with but then when they show the flashback and what he really did, it's like, okay, so he just laid down. And you always hear about soldiers are afraid to shoot at somebody because unless somebody's shooting at them, they talk about that in real life experience. So when you see that character do that, it's like, it's not really shocking because you've heard about it in other war movies, in a sense, enough to know. And also, I really enjoy, though he's not in this movie a whole lot, David Arquette's in this movie, and he's one of the better looking characters too, until he gets killed.
So that's a strange state of affairs.
And this was a full year before he became the WCW champion. I just want to say that.
Do you feel better?
Yes. I got my wrestling put out the way, my wrestling knowledge out the way quickly.
In with the good air.
Well, wait, do you know who he pinned?
No, nor do I.
In the
who did he pin?
In the triple threat match, he pinned executive producer Eric Bischoff to win the title.
It's interesting you should bring that up about a movie with so much homosexual subtext. I'm not even sure it's subtext. I mean, and Robert Carlyle openly says that he was playing that.
Yeah.
So yes, David Arquette pinned someone.
How great of an actor is Robert Carlyle in this movie? I mean, he just steals this movie.
Just go right over it. He's very good in the film. Yeah. He is, it's amazing because Robert Carlyle is a guy who I'm gonna hope that his lack of screen presence after World Is Not Enough is by choice. I think he did some TV. Didn't he do like one of the Stargate things, like Stargate Goes Hawaiian or something?
Yeah. Universe, I think.
Yeah. Paging Mr. Shields. But a friend of ours is a big Stargate fan. But that to me, sometimes television doesn't count. And when you have a career as interesting as Robert Carlyle's, seriously, when you go from this to the Full Monty to playing one of the most interesting, if miswritten and underused, Bond villains, and playing it interestingly. Any problems with his character in World Is Not Enough have nothing to do with Robert Carlyle. It's just they come up with a great concept for a character and then do nothing with it. A villain who can't feel pain, and then just nothing. But Carlyle's astounding in the film. I mean, this is just one of the great performances. And it's kind of like Hollywood then spending the next 20 years trying to ignore that 1999 happened. Either that or doing terrible sequels to it.
A friend of mine on Facebook posted a thing on my page asking, name a villain who's utterly reprehensible but is a joy to watch. And I mentioned Colonel Ives, Robert Carlyle's character, because when he is on screen, he just grabs your attention and is such a, kind of a cross between Albert Packer and Hannibal Lecter. Though it's not, I guess, not much of a mix.
And a little bit of Chef Tell, if you remember him. But here's the thing: is that this movie, what you just said, sums up so many people, and you can't take your eyes off them. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's something hypnotic in the music or what. But it was the director, Antonia Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really interesting British stage director. And make her, gritty, realistic, films, and Mad Love, which she sort of got roped into. Did not know it was going to turn out to be sort of this dopey Chris O'Donnell vehicle, and by that I mean a Chris O'Donnell vehicle. So yeah, I don't know what she did, except it's the costumes and the makeup and these interesting actors with wonderful faces who know what to do with them.
Definitely. I tell you what's funny is watching the credits, because I didn't catch who it was. I thought it was Antonio Bird at first. Then I went on IMDb and read it, and yeah, there's so many. I think this movie arguably is perfectly cast in every role.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Carlyle got her the job.
Yeah. Apparently there was another director and got passed off and said, "Hey, my friend can do it." And
do you know who was the director in between?
I read that, but I don't recall.
That let the actors go on strike. The director of Home Alone 3.
Oh, well,
what in Home Alone 3 made the producers say, this is the person to do our frontier cannibal satire?
But something about this film, and to me it jumps out. The beginning sequence, intercut between the hero meal for Guy Pearce and his flashbacks. And I will say, poor Guy Pearce's character of Boyd is obviously so badly affected by PTSD through a large portion of this film. And they're having steaks and they're eating them, and you can just tell what's coming. He tries to eat it, and then he runs away from the table, and he barrels over, and in much kind of the way I'm in the camera, he goes to throw up. And when he does, just where the vomit goes, up pops the name of the film, and starts this theme that plays through 3 times in the film, which I'll get to in just a moment. But that, with the kind of vomit over the name, it doesn't really go over the wording. That told me right away, this is not your regular film. This is not Cannibal Holocaust. This is not Cannibal Pharaoh. It takes itself seriously, but also it doesn't take itself seriously. It's kind of like if Vincent Price had a great director, because Vincent Price would always do that. I know this is kind of silly. Just come along with me. But if you had done, kind of take Witchfinder General and House of Wax and mix those two together, That's how I describe it. It's kind of like a serious comedy or a comedic serious film. There's yeah, everybody is worth watching. There's so many symbolisms and parallels. I was wondering when I watched it again, I wonder what George Romero would think of this film, because I think there's two films I would pair this
Would have
with.
loved it.
Yeah, I think so too. I wished I'd had a chance to ask you. But you could pair this with Dawn of the Dead for the materialism, consumerism. Also, I think you could pair it with American Psycho.
Mhm.
But let me go back to the music real quick, if you don't mind. It's this haunting theme. And it starts out very simple. It's dun 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 dun. And for whatever reason, in the theater, and every time I watch this film, my ears are drawn to that. I've actually lost track of what's happening on the screen because I'm hearing that in my head. And Patrick knows who I'm referring to. One of the two guys that I used to go to films with, his name's Jeremy. Jeremy had a lot of soundtracks. And I always used to, hey, did you get this? Did you get this? And finally, for Christmas that year, he bought it for me to get me to shut up. And I love that thing. To this day, what, 24 years later, I still love that dun 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 dun. It's very haunting, very ear catching, and works well with the film.
Have you looked up anything else by that composer, Michael Nyman? Doesn't write a bad score. I
No.
mean, in every one of it sounds like music from the future.
Or the past, in this case.
Yes. Yeah. And they all just have some quality. I'm sure a musicologist could actually tell us what it is, but they just have some quality that just hangs in your mind. It transcends whatever you're thinking and immediately starts affecting your mood. It's you can feel yourself. Talking about Mozart effect, you can feel yourself getting smarter as you listen to Michael Nyman music. But maybe the things you're beginning to think and see are not things you want to think and see. That's the nutty part about it.
One of the things I did when I got that soundtrack is I opened up and I was looking at all the instruments, trying to figure out. I mean, I used to play drums. I know music decently well. I know people know a lot more than I do. And I ended up having to look up several of the instruments that he used because they were period specific instruments at that time, which, maybe he recreated with a synthesizer or whatever. But God, I really love this soundtrack.
Were there any sort of like weird homemade instruments or things like that
There was nothing listed on there. It was all legitimate. I mean, everything I didn't recognize, I could look up and find.
So it wasn't like the saw or something.
Yeah.
The spoons. That's appropriate.
Sorry, Joel, we took over. Back at you.
No, I enjoy listening.
Joel, do you play the spoons?
No, but my daughter plays the spoons very meanly. So
what a great dad to have raised a daughter who plays the spoons.
We actually, when she was very little, when she was like 6, she wanted a drum set, and I bought her a toy drum set, and she played on that thing so much she broke it, and
probably to the delight of her parents.
Same when I was a kid.
To this day, she still wants a real one. And my wife looked at me. She goes, "If you buy her a real one, I will kill you."
Get her electric drums with that. She puts the cans on, and nobody hears it.
And you can buy them relatively inexpensive off of Temu. I'm not telling you what to do.
Are they good?
Some of them are actually. I've seen a few videos on YouTube where these guys buy these electronic, and they got the headphones, or you can listen to it. You can turn the volume up and down. And some of them. The one I looked at, and if I can find it, if you want, Joel, I'll send you a link. Is about $40, and I mean, this was a drummer, a professional drummer, drumming on it, and he's like, this works pretty darn good for $40.
For $40,
that's not bad.
Don't know how long it'll last. Obviously, he was it was like an unboxing and him playing it, but we looked one up, and I almost got it just because my drum kit's still at my parents' house, and you can't really turn the volume down on a real set of drums.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot. I really enjoyed the cave scenery. I love how they shot that really, really tightly. And anytime I see a cave sequence in a movie and how they lit the cave and how they still made it dark, even though they had lighting in the cave, still was very creepy. It gave that horror aspect that the film. I felt that was one of the most terrifying parts of the movie, and it gave, because this movie is a horror comedy. It has comedy and horror, but I like the horror element because the one of the best moments of comedy that I do love is when Boyd shoots the guy on top. They're on top of the hill, and the guy gets up, and then Boyd just jumps off.
There was, and we saw, I cannot find it, but my hand to God, I saw this. It was a trailer for this film before it came out, and they were playing Rob Zombie's I'm Your Boogeyman. And as they got to the chorus, it was like, I'm your boogeyman. It's where Boyd is jumping off that cliff and going down. And it, for whatever reason, that just stuck in my mind. And I was like, guys, we're going to see this film. It worked, but I cannot find that anywhere. It's like I've imagined it, but I guarantee you I did not imagine it. That scene, God, there's so many scenes in this film. That one, also there with the cave scene, while Reich and Boyd are in the cave, and who we find out later to be Colonel Ives is outside acting like he's freaking out. There's that point where he drops the pretense, and he's like, "Now it's time." And he stops being. I forget the character's name he's faking, but we find out who the bad guy really is. And let me tell you, Robert Carlyle. I remember when I first saw this, I was like, okay, here's this kind of skinny guy. He's supposed to be sickly and weak and non-manly. So anybody that was in the Old West going over the plains was manly. And then all of a sudden, he turns into action Hannibal Lecter. And it's so believable and it's so creepy. And that, his performance, the music, the cave scene with the lighting, all works together as they intercut. And it just raises the tension to an amazing level. And again, made so well. I mean, this film, honestly, it's a 9.5 at least for me. I think it's a great film. Anybody likes horror or westerns should watch it.
Just a good story that doesn't look like every other freaking story that you have to sit through. There's nothing predictable in any of this.
No.
And yet at the end of the film, I look at it and I think, God, I should have seen it all coming.
And you can watch it again, and it's still not painfully obvious. You know where it's going, but you're just kind of there. It's good performances, good scenery, and it's like The Big Sleep. I've watched The Big Sleep several times. I have no idea what the hell's going on half the time, and I don't care because it's so much fun.
You say that about Living Daylights. Seriously, like.
Butch, you were not mistaken. I found your trailer for you.
Okay, thank you.
I will not only leave it in the link, I will send it to you both, tag it to you both when we upload this video. So you got to listen for it at the end of the trailer. Though. So Rob Zombie's Boogeyman is, Butch was right. Rob Zombie's Boogeyman is in the trailer Ravenous, but it's at the end.
Yeah. So, it grabs you there. I'm going to take over Jules' role for a minute. Patrick and Jewel, your favorite scene, if there is one scene that is your favorite scene.
Jewel.
Oh, definitely the caves, because it was nice to because as they're going into the caves, they're building the element of Carlisle's character, of the deception of it too. And when they go into the caves and they see all the bodies, they realize, oh my God, he did this. That moment is so good. And don't get me wrong, the post moment of them hunting him was really good. And I love the hill scene too. I love everything after. There's nothing wrong with this movie at all. It's fun from start to finish. And it moves so fast, you will not get bored watching it. It's very entertaining. And I just love that cave scene because look, anytime you put a cave scene in the movie, it's like putting the desert in the movie. You got me. I'm there. It's really, really good. And I love just the way they shoot it. And I love how they lower the one guy down because it's like that felt so real, them doing that. And it was so nice to see in a film.
Patrick?
You know, for me, I'm gonna take your option that you gave me, which is to uh, decline to state a favorite scene because I think the film is so uh, expertly created as an integrated whole that they're all stronger. They're all mutual keystones, and I want to keep it that way. I really like that about it. I think it just for me, I got to take it as a gestalt.
That's the reason I phrase it because that's kind of me too. I mean, there's some scenes like Joel says the cave scene's great. Um, as you find out the flashbacks at the beginning, what Boyd did and hadn't done, and what happened to him. When Carlisle shows up as Colonel Ives, and you're like this, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because the movie changes when they're at the cave, and then it changes again when Colonel Ives shows up.
Hmm.
And but it's still the same film. It's like like the road goes this way a little bit, then it goes this way, but it's still telling you this great story.
Yeah. I love how they shoot the blood in this movie too, if that makes sense. How when Boyd's at the bottom of the pile of the dead soldiers and the blood's coming down to his mouth is really a nice shot scene. Just despite the blood, if you're squeamish on the blood, it's I love how they shoot it. It looks really beautiful. So this was a great recommendation, Butch.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
The thing I really like is about that is, probably Boyd already had PTSD,
Yeah.
and the men are screaming in, Lieutenant, Lieutenant, and he's just kind of like, whiskey tango,
Yeah.
and he just lays down. He did, like you're talking about how soldiers don't want to shoot unless they're being shot at. And then he's laying there, and as he says, my commanding officer's what was left of his face was laying on me, and the blood runs down and goes in his mouth, and that's actually what starts him on the Wendigo trail. And it's that, and when him and Reich are at the bottom, fell off the cliff, and his leg is broke, and Reich is dead. Arguably, that may be. I don't want to pick one, but arguably that might be my favorite scene. When he finally looks at Reich's body, he's like, "Damn you! You're already dead. You're safe." And he takes out of his knife and starts cutting the meat off of him because he's stuck. I mean, he's got a broke leg. He's got a crazy man hunting, but also I guess the counterpoint is Reich's pretty badass for a private, and since you gain the strength of the person you eating, if you're going to have to eat somebody, eat the badass so you can get some badass in you. No pun intended.
Right. No, Reich's definitely a badass to the bone in this movie.
Literally.
His death shocked me, actually. Like, holy shit, they just killed Reich. Oh my god.
Well, okay, let's move into spoiler alert territory. What about when Jeffrey Jones shows back up?
Yeah, I was like, what? See, but here's the thing to that too. When Carlos' character gets up from being shot point blank range, I'm like, oh shit, so them eating has an effect of healing. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm like, so wait, is anybody else? My question was in my mind when I first watched it was, is anybody else going to do it? Now, when his character showed back, I'm like, wait, what? And then I'm like, oh, then they explained it. I'm like, oh, he moved the bodies. He helped move the bodies in the cave. It's like, oh shit. It was holy shit.
The holiest.
The holy, yes. Yes.
There's the point where when the Indian is showing the cloth and telling the legend of the Wendigo, and he's like, "Are there any other tribes that do this?" And he says something, goes, "White men eat the body of Christ every week." It's like, ooh, that was for me. That was a very interesting parallel that I'm sure would make some people uncomfortable, which it's supposed to. That's the point of that.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
No, wait, you got to talk because you got to talk.
Well, Gene Roddenberry talked about that as a kid, going to church in El Paso and hearing those references. And his exact quote was, "Oh my God, I'm among cannibals." And I don't think he was making a joke. I mean, that's a very, that is part of the I'm trying to word this very, very, very carefully. That is part of culture in a lot of cultures. That's very ancient, and this movie is talking about that. And I am not a man to get into because I don't have the knowledge to do so. The real deep dish, no pun intended, intricacies of Christian belief, and what was metaphor on Christ's part, what was literal, and it depends on what denomination you're dealing with. You're dealing with Catholics, and they think it magically becomes the body of Christ as it's traveling into you, transubstantiation, maybe. Um, uh, but for that to be such a part of our culture that we don't often stop and listen to and pay attention to is interesting, because on one hand, it's treated as very literal, and on the other hand, I think there is, even as it's treated as literal, there is not, probably for good reason, the embrace of kind of the Klingon-like quality of this consumption of another person and gaining that thing, that essence of the other person as you do it. And one of the reasons this movie probably was not a great success is that it just says, here you go, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dress it up with a little Native American mythology, kind of, except that you have two characters who look like most of the paintings of Jesus done from the time of the Civil War to about the 1960s. And I don't think that was unintentional. They could have had short hair, but they didn't. They could have had, but as the movie goes on, well, actually, Carlisle pulls back from being more full bearded and so on, and Guy Pearce moves further into that. But it's, I mentioned it not to certainly not to incite, offend anything, but just to say, hey, this is a thing. This is a thing. It's worth talking about as a thing.
Well, even Carlisle putting the red cross on his forehead when he's
holy shit
hunting.
Yes.
Well, even
there's so many layers to all of this that you want to watch a kind of funny, slightly serious cannibal western? Okay, there's that. Do you want to look at it from religious implications of consuming pieces of ancestors and or / deities? There's that. There's many levels to this, and the great thing about it is they all work.
Yeah, that the religious dimension in this, the interesting thing for me is that it is a way to basically talk about the fact that there are dimensions to many religious practices that are far more ancient dimensions than the religions themselves. I mean, you go way, way back, and that means there's just something in the DNA. There's something very primal about that idea. Just the fact that we still eat meat,
Yeah.
and I love meat. It's terrific, and I can also cop to the fact that it is not reflective of what I want to be. I mean, if I can eat tasty food happily and not have to take a life,
Yeah.
well, that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because we can rationalize all we want about how, well, they're different and so on. Yeah, go to a slaughterhouse, watch some footage of how these animals are treated and what goes on. And I'm the last guy who's a PETA member or anything like that. But sometimes it's hard not to be
Yeah.
when, I forgot what the movie was, but it was a only semi-fictionalized look at the meat industry, and it had a lot of real footage. It's like Richard Linklater directed it or something. I don't remember what it was. In the mid aughts. And I remember seeing it with a friend of mine. We both walked out of the movie. I don't remember what it was. It was a good movie. It was so tough to watch. I just couldn't think about it. I erased it from my memory. But he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to become a vegetarian?" And I really had to give it some thought. Uh, so and the good news about being a vegetarian is that many of the most terrible foods that we can consume have no meat in them at all, so they're still on the table.
Can I add a little?
Cheetos, Twinkies. What?
Can I add a little more to the religious thing?
Go right ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to, Jewel. You're the
Okay.
chosen one.
Well, here's one for you. Okay. When you do Good Friday, right? When you receive the body of Christ, it's after Lent. It's post Lent. Lent is before Good Friday. You like, you know what I mean? You're
So you're
receiving.
getting hungry. Is that what are you saying,
No,
Jewel?
what I'm saying is you're receiving the body of Christ on because Christ is crucified, Good Friday and stuff. But
Yeah.
that's post Lent when Christ walked through the desert and all that stuff for 40 days and 40 nights and gave up food, water, etc. You're supposed to give up, and most people give up meat for Lent. And when you go to Good Friday, what do you get? The body of Christ to signify the end of your Lent.
Welcome back to meat.
Yeah.
Literally beginning with, no, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
It's like if we're going to begin consuming this again, start with the highest of sources.
Yep. Yep. In every way. And it's, again, I'm not knocking religion. It's just an interesting sort of look into it.
Didn't Jewel, of anything that's been said on any of your shows, you're not the one knocking religion. I got a news flash for you.
Oh my god. Who's your favorite character in this movie? Butch?
If I'm honest, Colonel Ives. He's just, since I was a little kid and I saw some movie with a guy named, I think it was Darth Vader, the bad guys usually draw me in. It's just, oh God, who was it? Charlton Heston, Sir Christopher Lee, several people have said that the bad guys are more interesting. I will say that Boyd, Guy Pearce, does have a journey. He is interesting, and it's not like, well, I'm Sir Lancelot here to kill the bad villain. It's like, no,
that's not this movie.
No, it is not. I mean, this guy, truthfully, I don't think he could be more reluctant. But also, Ives says something about morality, the last refuge of a coward, and so many. He has the best lines. He has the best scenes. The switch from his first identity to his actual identity, because he even talks about Denver, which immediately went, oh yeah, Alfred Packer, yeah. And Yeah, if I'm truthful, for a fictional character, it's Colonel Ives.
Patrick?
The character played by Jeffrey Jones. I have to be very careful with how I phrase that. But it is such a well-written in a movie full of unpredictable performances. I have no idea what this guy's ever going to say next, and I love that. And Jones, who is a very fine actor, is just having a ball.
Joel?
I really enjoyed Guy Pearce's character Boyd because he's not your typical Western hero. This isn't John Wayne. This isn't character Henry Fonda or even James Stewart would play.
Or Terrence Hill.
Or Terrence Hill.
One of the greats.
Or Lee Von Cleef.
Or Lee Von Cleef. But it is a completely different take on what a kind of journey a person can go through. And I love how the fact that the character is coming to his own realizations about what's really going on. Like he knows, like Carlotta's character doesn't have to really tell him. Deep down, I think Boyd knows what's going on.
He's just denying it.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this out here. A classic Western actor that I think could pull this performance off.
Go
ahead. God, I'm sorry. Randolph Scott.
Yeah.
Now, he never made this kind of film. This is a little too serious and a little too jokey for him because he's a very classic Western. But you look at some of his more out there films that we've done, there's an edge to his character. I could see him doing a similar, maybe not specifically this role, but a similar role at least.
Well, he was certainly getting back. I mean, but getting back to the homoerotic elements in the film, not something probably unknown to him, given that he lived with Cary Grant.
Yeah.
For quite a while.
Is there anything you guys want to add about this movie?
I got two questions for both of you.
Okay.
How did the bear trap kill Robert Carlyle when most of it went into Guy Pearce?
Yeah, that's
hard work, dedication, perseverance, character.
I just accepted it because it's the end of the movie. We're supposed to accept it, but
because the script says so.
Yeah, basically.
And I got some potato skins at Fridays looking at me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Patrick on this one.
It's got to end sometime.
Yeah,
sure, bear trap.
I got sorry, I had three for you. So here's number two. At the end, when the general comes in and he starts going at the stew, and does he become part of the Wendigo tribe? Shall we say?
Absolutely.
Yes, this infects the U.S. military.
Yeah,
this gets carried back to the U.S. military.
This is Return of the Living Dead, but better.
Ooh, not a bad choice.
Okay.
Okay. Going back to my first question here about the bear trap. I always have this thought other than the first time I saw it, every time I watch this film, I have the thought, after about, I don't know, hour or two, suddenly Robert Carlyle lifts the bear trap up, throws Guy Pearce off, maybe takes a bite or two, staggers in there and grabs some stew, and that is not the end of Colonel Ives.
No, I think the character is still alive today. Seriously.
I do love it when Martha, the Indian lady, she sees what's going on, and then we see her just leaving the fort.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Damn crazy Qualo."
You know what would have been a badass ending to this movie? Is if they could have found a way where Boyd, Guy Pearce's character, decides, you know what? I'm gonna burn this motherfucker to the ground, and lights the fort, and everybody who's left alive, he doesn't take no chances. He figures they're all gonna turn anyway. Lights them all on fire, and then we see them still alive. They come back up, and you slowly start to see the decayed, burnt skin regenerate, and Colonel Ives is still alive. That would have been bad.
If I can't say that anyway. Go on. Trust
I think I need to bring Colonel Ives into Deadlands.
There you go. There you
me.
go. Are we doing autofocus tomorrow, Patrick?
You bet.
All right. Next Friday. Hope you'll join us for this one too, Patrick. It is Silent Hill.
I have never seen it.
See, it is the best video game movie ever, in my opinion.
That's a very interesting bar that you set with that. I mean, it is a very, if being the best video game movie ever made is your goal, it is a goal that you might very well achieve.
I've played 4 Silent Hills. This movie meets every expectation of the first 2, and even the ones that came after it.
Is that the one that has Sean Bean?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one. There's no sequel. There's no goddamn sequel. Okay, no matter what.
You're taking my lines, Joel.
To this point in my life, there's no Silent Hill, so you don't have to. We're not even into the sequel area yet. Silent Hill is the end of a Benny Hill episode for me.
Is 9:45 good for both you guys next Friday?
Yeah. As far as I know.
Smells like a hot baked biscuit.
All right. What time do you want tomorrow, Patrick?
Whatever's good for you.
We'll do 9:45 then too. That way we can do early, and we'll do sound checks.
Juicy.
Okay. See you tomorrow for Autofocus. Patrick, Butch. Patrick, I'll see you guys next week for Silent Hill. Guys,
yum, meet them up.
That's right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys.
You too. Thanks, Joel.
Bye.
Bye.